other side of the system too. It's like creating a system where the product manufacturers are creating sustainable packaging so that it can get recycled. And
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually where a lot of people get confused is they see a recycle logo on a product and they assume that because there's that logo is on there that therefore this is a recyclable or it's going to get recycled
Correct.
product. And really that logo is just it's an identifier. Plastic, it's 1 through 7 and depending on the number it identifies what type of plastic it is.
Right.
Unless it's 7, because 7's other, so who knows? Who knows what? That's a catch-all for something else. But the point is, there's a big disconnect. There's a lack of transparency between what we think is recyclable and what is actually recyclable. And there's a lot of reasons for this. Tends to be that cities will put in their programs, oh, we take plastic 1 through 7. And then the hauler collects it and they take it to the material recovery facility and they say, well, we'll take number 1 if it's a beverage container, and number 2, maybe number 5, but we don't want everything else. You need to stop sending us this material. So the waste hauler goes back to the city and says, hey, they don't want plastics 3, 4, or 6. Can we stop accepting it? Well, you know, there's not a market today, but there might be a market tomorrow. So we want to keep people in the habit of sorting it. So there's just a lack of transparency.
Right.
People really don't know what happens to their material after they send it to any of the streams, really. And it's really difficult. It's really hard. You can't just call up your hauler and say, you know, what's actually happening with this? They might tell you something, but then you go to the recovery facility and they might tell you something different, or they might not let you visit it, or it goes on and on.
Right. No, I mean, that is a lot of proof of a lack of transparency.
Yeah, but as consumers, it's really hard for us to do the right thing when it's hard to know what the right thing actually is.
Right.
Because some recovery facilities have the capability to to separate some materials. Others don't have the technology to do it.
And that's why glass recycling isn't in the single stream. Like, they go back to the MRF and they say, we don't have the infrastructure to process the glass, so we're not going to collect it at all.
Or a lot of times they just break it intentionally. One of the first steps in the material recovery facility is they just this like crusher thing and it breaks it and the glass shards fall to the bottom, and that way they don't go through the system and potentially break along the system where an employee or human could come into contact with them.
Right.
But then also that way it's much more compact because broken glass takes up a lot less, it's much more dense, takes up less space than intact glass.
That makes sense, yeah. I mean, and it's going to become cullets anyway.
Yeah.
So, well, there's a lot to learn.
There's a lot to learn, and I am knee deep in it every single day, and I still get confused as to what the right thing to do is on any given day, at any given moment. So I can't imagine what just the regular consumer is thinking.
Right. I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to say about contamination. Is like, as consumers, like, what are the things that we can be doing to ensure that our recyclables are getting recycled?
They got to be clean and dry.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
You take that soda bottle that still has soda in it, and you throw it in there, and the soda drips out, and it gets out onto the paper and other materials. It's just going to contaminate them. It's going to ruin them. And now with such a low tolerance for what's accepted in recycling, it's more important than ever that it's clean and dry, because you can't risk just ruining loads because of liquids, food waste, other things that just don't belong.
Right.
And even a lot of people don't realize that if you have contamination is not just like food in the containers, or it could also be multiple materials that are like either fused together or are just the way their packaging works, they're blended together.
Like a chip bag.
Like a chip bag could have plastic and paper, or plastic and metal fibers in it. There's lots of aseptic liquid packaging that are they're tri-layers. They're not like the old milk cartons that are just like paper with a little wax coat.
Okay.
Now they have a plastic liner, and they have a tin liner on the outside of the plastic liner, and then they have some sort of wax or a plastic coat on the outside.
Okay.
And you'll see on lots of these packaging, it'll say recyclable where facilities exist.
Right.
Well, I don't know where those facilities exist. And
yeah.
I don't know if I put it in my blue recycle bin, is it going to go do they have a market for that material? I don't really know.
Right.
So unless it's really clear cut, I just assume that it's not going to be recycled.
Yeah. Well, I know that, like, one of the solutions, I mean, outside of, like, just contamination for ensuring that your recyclables get recycled, like, it's something like, what else can you do? And and that's one of the solutions that we're trying to provide at the End of Waste Foundation too, is bring transparency into all of the systems and have financial contributions go to the waste industry to ensure that quantities of glass currently are getting recycled.
Yeah.
And trying to keep it at a low price so that we are keeping it at a low price and making sure that those funds with our blockchain technology is going straight into the system and that it's all transparent. Because basically, at the end of the day, we're just trying to bring more sustainability to the planet, and it's going to take a collective effort. And yeah.
Yeah, I always say it's a two-pronged approach. We need consumers who are aware, who are educated and aware and want to help drive the change. And we also need businesses and government to be on board as well, because businesses generate about 70% of all the municipal solid waste, at least in California.
Right.
So they're very influential.
Correct.
More so than any one person. So we kind of need everyone to work together.
Right.
I think we've often made the mistake of putting the burden on the waste haulers to do all the work when really they're the trucking company. They pick up the material. You tell them it's trash, they take it to a landfill. You tell them it's recyclable, they take it to a material recovery facility. You tell it's compostable, they take it to a compost facility. And we want them to be our all-in-one environmental solution when really we need good policies that help support them. We need educated consumers, which also help support them. So it's really a multifaceted approach. A really hard pill for a lot of people to swallow is that recycling is only as good as your ability to find a market for that material. We've talked about that a little bit.
Right.
So a lot of people will say, oh, but it says it's recyclable. I know it's recyclable. This is a valuable commodity. Well, if we don't have the infrastructure to separate it properly, it's not going to get recovered. And if we don't have someone who's willing to buy it, then it's not going to get sold.
Right.
It's really hard to kind of comprehend that recyclable material is a commodity on the market like everything else. And the recycled content material is competing against the virgin material. And if you're a manufacturer of a product, a lot of times you go with the virgin, the new option, the freshly extracted and processed option, because you know that it's available, it's inexpensive, and you know that it's about as pure as it's going to get. There's this perception, I think often a misperception, that the recycled content is going to be contaminated, it's going to have other colors of plastic or glass mixed in it. So when they manufacture these uniform products, it's not going to look exactly perfect to their brand standards. So there also needs to be a lot of education for the manufacturers that there's value in using recycled content materials.
Correct. And then at the end of the day, you're just helping the earth.
Sometimes, feel good is good, but usually saving money, there usually needs to be a financial incentive to drive it as well.
Correct.
That's why it's important to have organizations like End of Waste that help, even if it's short-term artificially propping up a market, just sometimes you need to have that to get enough material into it to make it a more financially viable.
Totally, and as like a third-party member, we're just trying to be there as a solution and be there for consumers, for businesses, for the waste industry, and to have a shared responsibility of the waste, because it's affecting us all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So hope to have you back. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a comment and like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.